What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Political Soul Food. It is Monday night, April the 8th, 2019. And I'm here once again to talk about politics. Specifically tonight, this is a message for Democratic politicians. Democratic politicians are fighting in a very dangerous political arena at this moment. And as a Democrat, I want to offer some advice, some very important advice, because I want my representatives to do well. I want them to succeed in this unfortunate battle for the future, or perhaps fate, of the United States. And this is really a critical area of our lives, politics, and the consequences of the 2020 elections and those coming up are dire. I mean, this could be the turning point, all right? And I want to talk about this. And every election, we all do talk about how unique a particular election is compared to the rest. And in many ways, each election is unique and is a turning point. And so I understand that I am sort of borrowing this urgency, this rhetorical urgency, to make a point. However, I'm going to try to make my case to persuade you that this is a very important election. I mean, we should just start off with the fact that all elections are terribly important. And elections have consequences. All elections have consequences. And this is a lesson that I believe more people on the left need to know, need to learn, more than on the right. And that's because I always say this. My theory is that the right has they've inherited this birthright to what America is supposed to mean, what America is supposed to be. They inherited this American identity. And so the mythical American identity, or the long-standing American dream, is tied to conservatism in many ways, culturally particularly. And that's basically white culture. And so for most white people, particularly those who are conservatives, and thus Republicans in this day and age, as far back as they can remember, as far back as American history goes, all they will see is an American history providing a yellow brick road for white people. Along the way, many people have been interrupting and obstructing the pathway to an amazingly great America. People have been obstructing this, and this is sort of the narrative, right? And so they want to get back on track, hence make America great again. They want to get back on track in order to fulfill their manifest destiny. And I borrow that term, which is obviously all of you who have studied American history or read books know that this is not a term that I made up. This term is ingrained in our historical memory. However, this term has very specific images. When we travel back in time to manifest destiny, when we go back to the 19th and 18th centuries, we're talking about the destiny for a white America. Because at this time, the American identity was nothing more than a class of citizens who are white people, point blank, particularly men. So the right having recourse to such fixtures in American history, and obviously a lot of historical amnesia, fighting and voting comes along with their heritage, because it means, protect your property, protect your country. And they tie along the American Revolution and other wars to the legacy of America, which, as I'm making a claim, has always been based on whiteness. This is why voting is something that is mandatory among conservatives, and they are willing to roll up their sleeves and do what they got to do. Okay, this is second nature for them. Second nature. So, again, going back, all of that to say, I want to talk to the left here. And in this case, I'm talking specifically about the politicians on the left. Something has changed since the civil rights movement and Barack Obama's presidency. There has been a revolution in America. Not the kind that you read about where one day the regime, the status quo, was toppled. We're talking about, I should say, a deep evolution, a profound shift, which for me is a revolution in the way that the country evolved has redirected our imaginations about what America could be, and even more audaciously will be. And I think that we need to hold this narrative in place and inspect it more and more, so that it can be a source of motivation, a source of hope for some, a source of drive, and more than just faith, but confidence, I would say. That audacity to reclaim America. And so I want to talk about that tonight. There's a book that I mentioned, and I will continue to mention, probably for the rest of the year. I think the book of the year for political soul food is Brown is the New White: How the Demographic Revolution Has Created a New American Majority by Steve Phillips. I recommend all of you to get this book. Much of what I say not only comes from my own research and conclusions, but also from this text, where there are, in many ways, I connect with the author's conclusions and my research corroborate his data. So this is not just an ideological book, as many have claimed in the reviews, but this is a book that's full of facts. Let me just hook up Facebook here. Hopefully your audio is much better, Facebook. So get this book, and I should let you know that I'm going to offer this book as a prize, okay, on Political Soul Food. So you might want to tune in, because one day I'm going to ask a question, and whoever gets the question right and submit the answer to me first will win the book. Some of you might want to already go ahead and get the book, and that's fine. So what I wanted to share from this book are some reflections from chapter 4, the Requiem for the White Swing Voter. And so today's theme basically was talking about who Democratic politicians should focus on. For a very long time, particularly after Nixon won the White House, using the Southern strategy and other tactics, Democrats have been trying to win over the white swing voter, or the white working class, or the white soccer moms. And I won't get into whether that was the best thing to do or not. It was the way the Democratic Party responded. And I can understand. It makes sense. Historical fact check this yourself. But this is very important for voters to know and for Democratic politicians to keep in mind. And I'm talking to Democratic politicians, and we cannot assume that they all know certain historical facts, even the ones we support. Because to be a politician, all right, we want them to be well educated, but many of them are lawyers, and they kind of focus more on the legal aspects of our society, policies. That comes along with a certain amount of history. That comes along with a certain amount of social sciences, like statistics or sociology, maybe a little philosophy and other things. We will hope that our politicians, representatives are liberally educated, and liberal in this case, broadly educated, not the political ideological aspect of that term. I like the fact that liberal education uses the same word as being a liberal. I'm a liberal, so that's my little bias there. And I kind of mess with some conservative friends when I say, oh, you got to be liberally educated. But I'm not speaking about the ideology. But anyway, we kind of assume that politicians are going to know certain details. So we need to learn a lot of details ourselves. Right? And obviously they need to learn some details. So here's one fact. That since Lyndon Johnson, no Democratic president won the white vote. They've had white voters, but we've never won the white vote. And that raised a lot of concern, given that white voters have been a majority of the electorate. All right. And obviously there's been an unfair advantage to that, particularly, one is a natural reason. Obviously more white people lived in America than any other group, but also there were political barriers and obstacles preventing other groups from voting. So on the one hand, you have this sort of natural advantage, right? This inherited advantage, but then you also have this constructed or fabricated advantage where you limit other people from participating over years. So I understand why Democratic politicians have been trying to win over these white swing voters. But now with the data that is in front of us, it's time for them to reconsider who they need to focus on almost entirely. Okay? And that is what Steve Phillips called the New American Majority. The New American Majority are brown people, or even broader, what we would call the multicultural constituency, which includes progressive whites and people of color. So this is a fact that needs to be more widespread. This is a fact that needs to be understood and appreciated, owned, and we need to lead with that in our analysis, in our conversation, and when we respond to political maneuverings by the Republican Party, because you kind of want to be, I would assume all of us would want to be in touch with reality when it comes to politics, especially if you're voting, right? So I'm kind of talking to people who vote, and this is just as important for those who don't vote, because a lot of people who don't vote don't do so because they've made incorrect conclusions about what's going on, and understandable conclusions, don't get me wrong. All right, so the issue now, though, is we have some new facts on the table. Are you all willing to deal with these facts? Now, the kind of facts I'm talking about are not just this 1 + 1 = 2 facts. It requires some critical thinking to understand and to appreciate, and also requires some patience to enact and employ. A lot of us don't have time for that, and it's messed up. But we're going to have to start making time for that. And so, and that's what I want us to do, make time for that. And so what I want to try to do today is just sort of point you in the direction of these facts so that you can assess them yourselves. And hopefully this spreads to our politicians, because while I'm targeting the politicians in this particular episode, I'm doing so by sharing some information with all of you, so that will translate in your voting decisions and also in your conversations with other people. One of the things that we have to try to do is shape our public discourse. And the way we shape the public discourse is through certain posts we like, we share, conversations we have with each other, and again, voting patterns, right? So it's a longer process than what people would like for change to happen, but it doesn't necessarily get in the way of other strategies. However, it can only, but it's one that is necessary and can only help the other strategies, at least until they take shape and form. So I usually tell my friends who are just radical, as they say they're radical and ready to go, and I say, well, you know what? How about I'll continue to vote to just try to get what I can get for you until your revolutions is, you and your revolutionary forces are geared up and ready to go. So that's, I usually tell them that because as of now, they're only standing on the platform that was built up by people voting before they got around, and so, and this is not to obstruct them or discourage them, is to say that, I think you can use every bit of help you can get right now, just like I can. So, we try to find a way to tie all these strategies in. My boy G.D. Stokes is up in the house. We got Beauty and Define in the house. We got Dr. Marshall in the house. What's good? The topic is, which voters should the Democratic politicians focus on? And I'm just sort of setting it up. G.D. Stokes. So the whole point is knowing a few details in politics. I recommended my Patreon community through one of the reflections to start reading and doing deeper research than just getting news and memes, which is cool. But we got to tap into some of the deeper trends, deeper shifts, and be aware of the evolutions that are going on. Okay, things, patterns, and trends that are happening demographically, culturally, technologically. We want to be aware of that so that we can be a bit, I was going to say patient, but we can be wiser, because we have to see past the ups and downs and the vicissitudes of elections from one year to the next, to the next, to the next. And if we don't, we end up shooting ourselves in the foot. So here it is. So let me make my case here, and we'll chop it up. If you want to call in and discuss some things with me, do that. So the first thing is the new American majority. Democratic politicians need to start focusing on the new American majority. Yo, Kassan, who's the new American majority? The new American majority consists of white progressives and people of color. At this point, among eligible voters, the combination of people of color who are progressive, predominantly progressive, and white progressives, which is a minority among white voters, the majority of white voters, the majority of eligible white voters vote Republican. They're conservative. So that portion, combined with people of color, blacks, Asians, Indians, you name it, Latinos, the whole gamut, consists of a majority of the American electorate. And that's who Democratic politicians need to focus on. Why? Because if we look at, for example, if we look at Barack Obama's election, there's a lot of important information in Barack Obama's election and his presidency. You don't gotta like him. We can say that for another time, and you can talk about the policies or whatever. But we need to look at the statistics. Obama won these two amazing presidencies without the majority of, without having the majority of the white vote. That's important. That's important. And the core of the foundation, the cornerstone of his base were actually women of color, and the cornerstone within women of color was the black woman's vote. This should be information for Democratic politicians, which should now not only shape their policies, which I think has been directed towards the new American majority, but also shape the rhetoric. Many of our present day Democratic politicians no longer have the same, well, not no longer, don't have the same restraints that Obama had as, you know, as being the first black president of the United States. They don't have that restraint. And perhaps even Barack Obama himself, however, they could speak more aggressively on behalf of the new American majority, particularly within that group, people of color. Okay, Obama has already sort of paved that way for those who are coming behind him to speak more forcefully. Because if there's anything for me, for example, if I had a problem with Obama, it wasn't really a problem for me, but a problem that I identified that among other people, particularly people of color, was his rhetoric. And that just, and I understand people wanted, you know, one dude told me, one of my Cuban friends, like, he just don't feel like my president. And, you know, he just wanted to hear, he wanted Obama to speak more about his interests in a way that Trump speak about white voters' interests. And so for me, my understanding of patience was not derived from like my own wisdom. It was really derived from understanding the the context Obama was in as the first black president of the United States. In fact, all one needs to do is really study black politics, particularly electoral politics, and look at the kinds of strategies that all first black politicians in their different domains had to do. Look at those strategies, right? Obviously, Harold Washington was in fact Obama's sort of archetype in many ways. Harold Washington inspired Obama to even go to Chicago and to get a law degree. And there are many other firsts and seconds who were, making changes, by winning in white majority neighborhoods and stuff like that. So it wasn't strange for me. Like, I didn't see anything lacking from Obama because I had situated him in in a deeper history that goes much deeper than the last 10 years, because most people just look back at before Obama there was Bush, and before Bush there was Clinton, and it just drives me crazy when people just analyze politics starting off at Clinton or even at Reagan, and it's just like, whoa, okay, so your analysis is not accounting for some of the factors that have sort of set off the trends that you're frustrated with. So that's that. But rhetoric is important. Rhetoric is not important for me, but I have to concede something that I learned is that words really do matter, and unfortunately they matter more than ideas. For many of us right now, particularly for a lot of Americans. And I gave the left a little bit too much credit, thinking that rhetoric mattered less for the left than it did for the right. It was clear to me that anyone talking like Trump will galvanize people to get on board. In fact, Trump was just using the vocabulary that people were already using, and some of his some of the other Republicans were just a little cautious about using that rhetoric, particularly because they knew that they didn't want to make the Republican Party look too bad. So political correctness was important on their behalf. So, but I'm realizing that rhetoric is very important, and that's probably where Obama's main Achilles heel is for thinking and analysis of those, because his rhetoric is great when speaking inspirational politics, but when it comes to the nitty-gritty politics, people don't want to hear that anymore. So Obama likes to get into the nitty-gritty politics and explain. He sees this stuff. He's really, really well read on history, really informed on the current trends in our culture, and he likes to lead based on very well informed positions. And so a lot of people, the left particularly, do not have the patience for that, and even worse, may not even have the background information to appreciate that. And so it is important that Democratic politicians now, when they focus on, as I'm recommending to them, on the new American majority, that they throw a little bit more oomph in their talk. I'm sorry to say we need it. The majority of us need it. I wish we didn't need it, but we do. And, this is the appeal, for example, that Bernie gets. He has this appeal because, he has this fiery tone and mannerism. He means business. And so, people really enjoy that. And so the lack of that, unfortunately, is misinterpreted as not having conviction. And so Hillary Clinton got a lot of that, not being, really for the people or not appealing to the people. And it was a really huge double standard in so many ways, right? Like Hillary Clinton, right? The only woman, main woman running, the main person running on behalf of the Democratic Party was a woman. It showed her taxes, right? She gave a thorough unveiling of her tax history. Trump didn't, nor did Bernie. But it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Like we just say, crooked Hillary, even though you can inspect her financial history way more than you can, let's say, Bernie Sanders, right? So I think that a lot of it has to do with rhetoric. Some people would say, well, Bernie's just, he's a, one of my friends said a while back, Saint Bernard or Saint Bernie. Bernie is a saint. Why? Because he's just saying things with more passion. And it's hard for me to appreciate that. So that was one of my errors, that I had to appreciate that more. That, the left need some rhetoric. So that's another issue I'll talk about. But, sticking with the focus, Democratic politicians need to recognize that some rhetoric is needed. But more importantly than the rhetoric, because different people got different styles, they need to tap that reservoir of voters who are now the majority of the electorate. And that is the new American majority, people of color, and white progressives. But among this group, people of color should be the number one focus. The number one focus. And that will, I think, give them the rhetorical devices and strategies to inspire the people on the left, particularly the people of color I'm talking about, including myself. And just focusing on that group and focusing on the cornerstones within that group, particularly black women, black people in general, who are very committed black voters. And I think rhetorically we need that more. And another tricky part is the policy. People say, well, they're not passing policies for us. And that is something that we need to learn as voters. A lot of people whom I was surprised to find out didn't know how laws are made, just in a general sense. Like really, many just thought that when Obama got in, he's going to go, I am King Barack Obama. And in the words of Michael Eric Dyson, give my black people more money. And he snaps his finger, and then people get more money. I mean, literally, people said that Obama should have gave people more money. Okay, really? So that is another issue that we'll get to, but I'm going to try to stay focused on the politicians. Politicians need to focus on people of color. And people of color, you should demand that attention, but not in such a contentious way, a hostile way. We need to remind them through our votes. We need to be consistent, because at the end of the day, it is going to be the voter turnout that inspire politicians to have faith, to have enough faith in their supporters to go all out. Because one thing about us Democrats, we sure know how to disappear from the polls. When there's a low voter turnout, you know who suffers? Democrats. When there's a high voter turnout, you know who succeed? Democrats. And we need to stop this sort of start and go. We like to sprint. And I have a theory for that as well. I think I know why we're into the sprinting business. As I mentioned earlier, on the one hand, conservatives have they have a sense of the birthright, that America is their birthright, right? And because most progressives or liberals or people of color have a horrible historical memory or experience with America, we don't look back at America as some place we miss or we have nostalgia for. And for many of us, it's a horrible relationship. And And I know many would just love to see, this country pay for its crimes. And that means a lot of us are not inspired to vote. And it's hard to see and commit to a future when so much of the past is filled with gloom, is filled with hopelessness, filled with pain and suffering to think about it. And I kind of caught this a little bit yesterday when I was in a bodega last night, and I was in a conversation with two of my friends who were actually brothers. And one, they're from Yemen, and one, I had made a comment about their younger brother who is getting ready to graduate from college, and I was like, man, this guy is smart. He could possibly be the first Yemeni president. And so one guy was like, no, it's impossible. It never happened. It's never happened. And I was like, well, things have changed. It is probably not today, but a lot of people are making inroads. They're paving the way, like Ilhan Omar, right? Being in the House now is sort of expanding our diversity in the House, and also, I would say, certain people's tolerance or even appreciation or even self-discovery in the way that they could realize, like, hey, it's not bad to have someone who's Muslim in the House. People are paving the way for that change. And so one of the things that happened was, in this conversation, the other brother who was sharing my argument said to his brother, he says, things have changed. Things have changed. You look at him, the black people was, they used to be slaves. And and so this black lady had walked in when he said that. And I'm kind of assuming, but from her mannerism, it was just like, just for her to think about, like, for her hearing that walking in, like, oh, you used to be a slave, or your people used to be slaves, or whatever. And obviously there's a problem with that, because our history doesn't begin with slavery, right? And there are dark histories or patches of histories in every culture and every ethnicity, okay? But because a lot of us don't know that, and our education doesn't prepare us for these, kinds of moments, it was almost, you was taken aback. And it's like, to look back at your history, it's like, oh, I was a slave. And I know he meant well. He didn't try to mean back, because he's actually, saying that, he's using that as an example of the great change that was made in this country, and why people need to keep the faith, and also look at and look for possibilities, and not limit our imagination to what we see now, or what we saw 100, 200, 300, 400 years ago. So anyway, having that dark past for people of color is a weight on our shoulders, and it's a weight on our drive in many ways to vote. And if things don't happen right away, we sprint, because we see, oh, wait a minute, this is like an opportunity for instant change. And when we don't get it, we kind of back out of the whole process, and we just always wait for that revolutionary figure, the next Malcolm X or the Marcus Garvey, somebody who's going to talk that talk, or go down, shot in the head. And we've kind of, and I understand the importance to be willing to stand up against the ultimate danger for what you believe in. But that is not the only way, and it's certainly not going to be the most efficient in every case strategy. What do we do in the meantime? What do we do for our kids? What do we do for tomorrow, next 10 years? And can we create opportunities for the kinds of changes that we want to see, other than just waiting for some revolutionary messiah to come? All right. So that's kind of why I hope you're following it here. A lot of, I think, people of color don't have that innate motivation. It's not innate. So for conservatives, it's innate. You read the book. One of my books up here. Where are you? It could be somewhere else. I rearranged the shelf here, but I have a book here called the. Oh, it could be around here somewhere. Let's see if we can find it. Oh, I see it. So, oh, perfect. The two books I want. So here is a Patriot's History of the United States. It's written by conservatives, and in many ways, these conservatives try to write objectively in acknowledging some of America's flaws, but ultimately, this is a victory story that dilutes the pain and suffering that paid for the great American country. Almost as if it has this biblical narrative where God, allowed for his people to suffer to make a point. And people of color in here are the ones who had to endure the pain and suffering. They were the sacrificial lambs for America, for the United States. So when one reads this book, a book that Glenn Beck proudly touts, he says, "This book has taught me more about our history than any I've read in years. A Patriot's History of the United States should be required reading for all Americans." Maybe so. I might even co-sign on that if it is also if it's accompanied by a people's history of the United States. But anyone reading this, especially conservatives, you're going to feel proud about your country. You're going to be able to say, well, the Indians, those native people, to be honest, they weren't really quite civilized. And also many of them are already sick. And they're probably going to die anyway. You read explanations in here, you get a lot of that. And black people, we kind of brought them to a better country. Slavery wasn't that bad. Women really couldn't do much, so it made sense that they really didn't have the right to vote and have access to education. You're going to get that. You're going to get these excuses that unfortunately numb our emotion, numb our empathy. And that's what happens. That's what happened. Whereas on the left, if you read this book, A People's History of the United States, now this book is just like a tell-all, and it's basically speaking from the perspective of those lambs, those sacrificial lambs, who allowed themselves to be slaughtered in order for America to be a great country. And so this tells a different story. This tells all the ouches and the oohs and the crying. It tells all the pain, the nightmares, the lynching, the exploitation. And if you're reading this and you're a descendant of any of the people in here, the people of this history, you're not going to think of yourself as having a birthright. Some will want to burn this country down and will want revenge. You're not looking for a compromise, a historical compromise. You're looking for justice. You're looking for Judgment Day. And so many people don't see politics, electoral politics, as the answer, or even if they do see it as an answer, It's not the one that they prefer. And so voting is not probably their first choice. And to motivate people to vote, they need to hear something extraordinary is possible immediately. And that's where the problem lies for Democratic politicians. But what I would say is that 100 years ago probably wouldn't matter that much, because obviously people of color really couldn't vote, but people of color can vote. And so Democratic politicians need to talk to us and remind us that now this situation, the context that we're in now, is very different. They need to even tell us and remind us that even if they, as politicians, fail or don't have the backbone, that our numbers could just use them literally as battering rams and just drive them through the obstacles that are hampering our equality. And so Democratic politicians have a tall order. And I think that some of the tasks can be shared with historians, scholars, people such as myself. I think we can do some of that lifting for them, for the politicians, to share this information to people of color, right? And then allow them to focus on those policies. So that's what I wanted to share today, everybody. That Democratic politicians need to focus on people of color. As the book I'm recommending all of you get, No Excuses, you should have this book. The information you just really should have this information. It basically unpacks a lot of facts that you just need to have. If you have any kind of conversation about politics with anybody, you should have this book. And the facts in here should be somewhere in your head. All right? Because the new American majority consists of people of color and the small portion of white progressives. We need to know it, and politicians need to know it. And we can actually help politicians know who they should focus on by raising up, standing up, waving our hands, and being out there and voting consistently. I actually had a lot of details and facts to share, but this conversation for me just went more in just explaining, the logic and a little bit of the history behind it. But the numbers, there's some numbers that are important. And, I think you should get this book. And so here's some ways you can fact check me. And then if you find some contradictions or whatever, or if you find some confirmations, hit me up at politicalsoulfood@KassanHenry.com. Or if you want me to clarify some things, even though I say that for my patrons, you can hit me up and I think I might respond, most likely. So let me just take on, see how much time I have. I'm going to take on a few. Now, if you want to call, now's the time to call. All right. So the number is 202-505-0250. 202-505-0250. So some people might say, and some people have said, all right. So I was on Amazon reading the reviews to the book Brown is the New White. And so people was like, well, how do you explain the fact that Democrats lost the House in 2010 and then the Senate? And in fact, so there's like an article I kind of pulled out here in November 2010, and the title of it is in The Guardian. The title says, United States midterm election results herald new political era as Republicans take House. And the subtitle is Democrats pummeled at polls but retain Senate as Tea Party notches string of high-profile victories across U.S. All right, and the same thing happened in 2014 in the Senate, though. Well, what happened was that there was a low voter turnout among Democrats. We dropped the ball there. The very constituency that had the advantage, because they were dismayed by the slow progress in the White House, all right, fine. If you want to say Obama dropped the ball in some cases, fine, you can say that. But there is no reason to be that dismayed other than being misinformed or altogether uninformed, misinformed about the political process and what Obama was doing and the kind of obstruction he faced, and uninformed about anything and everything, because you're getting your news, if you're getting it at all, from random social media sites, from people who are not even looking at the policies themselves. When you talk about policies, let me just throw this in here. I don't know if any of you have ever been on some kind of committee or led a committee or chair of a committee. It could be anything, from setting up a birthday party or a community board, or maybe you're an administrator in a school or some kind of marketing firm, or just trying to set up what to do for your girl who is about to get married, arranging a wedding or bachelor party, whatever it is, for your homeboy, and everybody is chiming in. And there's different personalities, different cliques in the group, especially the larger it is, the more complex it gets, the more layered it gets, and so many different interests need to be appeased and recognized. It's tough. And then you are trying to anticipate or preempt other people's potential responses. And this is what happens in electoral politics. And so Obama, and Democrats may have properly and at other times unnecessarily responded in ways that, slowed the process down. There's much to be said about that, but we say that for another day, or my other podcast if you want to hear that, my All About Barack Obama podcast, where I try to get into some of the nitty gritty, but it requires a lot more patience in that one. So voter turnout declined. Democrats took a hit. And so people had used that fact, that's a fact, to challenge this whole idea of this new American majority, not realizing that had they paid close attention, that was really because Democratic voters fell off. Why? Different reasons. Some would say, well, they fell off because, Democrats weren't really, pushing for them, and whatever the case may be. The fact that I wanted to add right now is that the House was lost because of a low voter turnout. All right, that's the first fact, and we can argue over why. But this isn't defense. This is my response to those who say, well, I'm wrong, or Steve Phillips is wrong about there being a new American majority, that people of color combined with the minority progressive whites consist of the new American majority. Even in the Senate, same thing. In 2014, when we lost the Senate, it's the same thing that happened. In fact, that election was a historically low voter turnout for Democrats. It was the lowest voter turnout in 70 years. Isn't that strange for that to happen during a historic presidency, during a presidency that actually enjoyed an increase in voter turnout at the presidential elections? that's when I realized that, you know, the left is very mercurial. So anyway, the point is, the narrative was that, you know, and I'm playing devil's advocate to my own, you know, claim here right now. For those of you who was wondering what's going on, when people want, because I have to account for at least, right, the, you know, the loss in the House and the Senate, and now that we have, you know, Republican White House, or let's say to 2016, you know, having a Republican House, Senate, and White House and Supreme Court, and you're like, the facts are not adding up. No, basically the facts are adding up because a minority can control the political power. I mean, that's typically how it goes in many cases. But what we have is a sign of, this is a symptom of low voter turnout. Okay, the electorate, the color, the politics, the ideology, the ideological layout of the electorate, the demography of the electorate is still what it is. And the exit polls for all of these elections, the 2010, 2014, 2016, shows that, hey, Democrats, liberals, progressive did not show up. Not just not show up. It's almost as if they tried to win an award to say, can we win an award for the lowest voter turnout? Like, that's how bad it was. And why? Obviously, I think that has more to do with messaging and a lack of, and let me spin it another way, you know, a need to be spoken to in a certain way, to be encouraged, and also a need that we have to understand, you know, to have the scenario presented in a way that keeps us inspired. And it's bad because, you know, a lot of us get our news from, you know, Colbert or Trevor Noah, and that's part of the problem. If you're a politician such as Obama, for example, who, you know, loves to read, you know, deep philosophical and complicated, you know, histories and keep up with the sociological trends, and you try to like share this information to someone who wants a skit to present the whole, you know, complexity of politics, we're not going to be able to do it. And then when you have that group, you know, losing heart, losing faith, and then the Republican Party are giving it to them. I mean, Fox News is the Trevor Noah show, is the is the Colbert show, right? Is SNL as the news station. So yeah, we got a problem there, Houston. So yeah, so there's a need to. I think that the left has to be re-educated. So that's my response to those who may say, well, you know, how do you explain, if you want to say that there's a new American majority and Democrats need to just focus on them, then, you know, how do you explain the fact that we paid a price, right? And that price doesn't add up. So yeah, we paid a price mostly because, you know, of our ignorance about what's going on. I really put most of it on the voters. I really put most of it on the voters. Um, so yeah, so that's that. So listen up. Thanks for tuning in tonight to, you know, to deal with this. So again, what I want you to take away is that Democratic politicians need to focus on people of color predominantly and the white progressive. We don't need to worry about swing voters or independents. They don't need to worry about that. But on the other hand, we need to just vote. Favorite candidate or not, you need to get out there and vote. You have to set the trends. Again, I'm going to be giving away this book. And so Brown is the New White. So stay tuned because I might throw the question at any point, and I want you to be able to answer the question. I want you to have your fair chance to win the book. So we got 25 seconds for me to shut down. IG crew, thanks for tuning in. Facebook, thanks for tuning in. Listen, please subscribe to my Facebook. To my YouTube. I need more subscriptions. All right, peace out, y'all, on IG. All right, I had to close down IG fast because once you get to 0, you can't save the video and repost it. So Facebook, thanks for tuning in, sticking around. If you have any questions or even, you know, a different point of view about this, share it. All right. And same thing for my YouTube crew. So y'all share this and, share your thoughts, and share the videos too. All right. So I'll see y'all tomorrow. Tomorrow is Tuesday, and you know what that is, right? What is tomorrow? Tuesday's Toxic Trump Report. So make sure y'all get in for tomorrow. I'm gonna keep y'all updated on this crazy presidency, but keep the faith. We're gonna move forward. We're still moving forward. All right, we're still on the offense, believe it or not. And if you don't, I'll remind you. Peace out. Good night, Facebook and YouTube. Peace and love.